Hello, this is Tony Heller from RealClimateScience.com. A group of children in Montana are suing the state, saying their right to a clean and healthful environment has been violated. Their complaint is that the state is allowing the fossil fuels which make the very cold climate of Montana livable. If the fossil fuels got turned off in midwinter when it's minus 40 degrees, these children would be begging to have the fossil fuels returned. And people travel from all over the world to see the clean and healthful environment of Montana, which is shown in this picture from the Washington Post. Perhaps these children from Montana would be happier living in the Congo and mining metals for electric vehicles. The children bringing this lawsuit are promoting an industry which is based on modern-day slavery. Perhaps they would like to trade places with some of these children in the Congo who are supporting the electric vehicle industry. The Washington Post says, already climate change is having a profound impact on Montana, including accelerating the retreat of glaciers in Glacier National Park, fueling wildfires that have torn through the forests, and worsening drought conditions that have left rivers running at historic lows. These are fascinating claims from the Washington Post. Only problem is that they're not true. 100 years ago, the glaciers in Glacier National Park were melting so quickly that experts predicted they would be gone by 1950. April 12, 1924, Glacier Park soon will lose its ice piles. Glaciers in Glacier National Park are melting away at the rate of from 15 to 30 feet each year, and within a few years will have disappeared entirely, said Dr. M.J. Elrod of the University of Montana. Then in 1952 it was predicted that the glaciers of Glacier National Park could be gone by the end of the 20th century. Then in 2014, the New York Times predicted that the glaciers might be gone by the year 2044. So let's take a look at the history of glaciers in Glacier National Park since 1850. They retreated very rapidly from 1850 to 1950, and after 1950 the retreat slowed way down until 1993. And over the last 30 years, the glaciers in Glacier National Park are either steady or they are actually growing. So the first claim by the Washington Post was exactly the opposite of reality. Then the Washington Post claims that the burning of fossil fuels is fueling wildfires. Burn acreage in the U.S. so far this year is currently at a record low, down 98% since 1930. The largest forest fire in U.S. history occurred along the Montana-Idaho border during August of 1910. 1910 was the driest year in anyone's memory. For 2 terrifying days and nights, August 20th and 21st, 1910, the fire raged across 3 million acres of virgin timberland in northern Idaho and western Montana. Most of what was destroyed fell to hurricane-force winds that turned the fire into a blowtorch. A forester wrote of flames shooting hundreds of feet in the air. Fireballs leaped canyons a half-mile wide in one fluid motion. Entire mountainsides ignited in an instant. By noon of the 21st, daylight was dark as far north as Saskatoon, Canada, as far south as Denver, and as far east as Watertown, New York. The fires of 1910 burned much of Idaho and Montana. March of 1910 was by far the warmest on record in the United States, with an average maximum temperature around the country of 65 degrees. Almost 3/4 of the United States reached 80 degrees Fahrenheit sometime during March of 1910. This year, during March, less than 1/4 of the United States reached 80 degrees Fahrenheit. This year, across the entire United States, just over 1 million acres has burned. But in 1910, 3 million acres of Montana and Idaho burned in 48 hours. Another massive forest fire season which affected Montana occurred in 1988 when much of Yellowstone National Park burned. Carbon dioxide levels in the atmosphere in 1988 were 350 parts per million, which experts now say is the safe level. It's interesting that safe levels of carbon dioxide burned up most of Yellowstone Park. As is normally the case, everything the Washington Post claimed was exactly the opposite of reality. It's doubtful that these children bringing the lawsuit would survive a week of a Montana winter without fossil fuels. They have no idea what they're doing, and they're being used by very evil adults. I haven't been to Montana this summer, but just to the south, here in Wyoming, we're having the coolest, wettest summer in memory. I'm going to finish this video up with some footage I filmed this summer, most of which was filmed in the last few days. For those of us who actually get outside and appreciate what we've been blessed with, we live in a very clean and healthful environment.